Okay, this is part 3. Now, actually made a mistake in the second video when I mentioned about Michael being on antidepressants and antipsychotic drugs the first time. He wasn't on antipsychotic, he was only on antidepressants. So anyway, this period of his drug taking, again, he steadily got worse and worse, more and more alcohol, more and more drugs. And the next time he was admitted to hospital was an episode he'd been, this is another, say, 2 to 3 month period where he was just heaps of alcohol, heaps of illicit drugs, no medication. He'd thrown his medication away. And it got really bad. They come back to the workshop one morning and I just said, oh, well, he's rocked up. Okay, we know where he is. And one of my other sons, he said to me, he said, Dad, you better take him to the hospital, look at him. He's a wreck. I said, well, you know, what do you want me to do, Tom? And he said, well, you know, you have to take him to the hospital, look at him. Well, anyway, little did I know, but he had just dropped some acid before he come to the workshop, and it was slowly starting to affect him. So I managed to get him to the hospital, and we take him in there. I rang them up and said we were coming up, Michael's in a bad way again. They all knew him at the hospital from the first time he'd been there. So we get there and we're waiting to go across to for the emergency department to check him out and make sure it was all right. They'd already rung through the A ward saying that Michael was back. We were sitting there waiting for to see one of the nurses in the emergency department, and Michael was pretty agitated. But I just said, you know, just calm down, Mick, you'll be right. You know, we'll get some help for you. And he said, I want to go out for a cigarette. So I took him out for a cigarette because you can't smoke in hospital grounds. So we went outside and we're standing out there, and he was pretty agitated and started swinging on this sign. I said, what are you doing? Oh. Anyway, I managed to get him back in. I was watching him as we walked back in. He was starting to get more and more agitated. We go back into the emergency department, into his little cubicle he was in. As soon as he walked in there, he started pulling everything off the shelves. And one of the nurses come in and just pulled the shutter down straight away, and then another male nurse come in and managed to quieten him down. Then he got assessed, and they said, okay, right, we're just waiting for a bed for A ward. And that only took about 15 minutes, I suppose, 20 minutes. So I took him across to A ward, and I didn't go with him that time because it was at night, and I thought, okay, he's safe, he's in hospital, so I'll see him in the morning. Well, apparently, when I rung up later that night, they just said, oh, Michael caused a bit of trouble down here. He tried to smash a window to get out of his room he was in, but it's fortified glass anyway. So they had to give him a needle to zap him out. But the next day, he was fairly calm and not too bad. So he stayed that time for probably another week or 10 days, and saw a psychiatrist every day. And you know, that's when I sort of, you know, started strongly mentioning about his drug. Was saying it was causing all this, and they weren't too happy that he'd gone off his medication, so they prescribed that medication for him, the antidepressant medication, because they believed that's what he was suffering from. That's why he was taking all the alcohol and drugs. One thing I forgot to mention earlier on in the first episode when I mentioned about him being a brilliant footballer. He was actually, like I said, I live in the country. He plays country football. But he was actually we'd sent him to Perth to play for one of the city teams, and he was actually down there training with them, and was drinking down there, and he actually wrote one of his mates' cars off. And that's when I brought him back. I think maybe we sent him when he was too young, no experience with alcohol, and just, like I said, he's always been number one, so he had to beat everybody. And that could have made him depressed that he had to come back, because he had knackered a couple of his ankles, and so he was injured a couple of times. Then he rode his mate's car off, and he was got charged with drink driving, so his mate got no insurance, so he had to pay for that, and that was about $20,000 or something. They had no other way of paying that unless he'd come back to us, so we brought him home and got him to work. Well, he used to work for me before he went there anyway. But anyway, to cut a long short story, he got back into hospital, and they said, Mick, you've got to take this medication. You can't just throw your medication away and think you're going to be fine, because you're not fine. You've got a problem, and we think you're depressed. That's why you're taking this. So anyway, they put him back on the depression tablets, depression medication, and we got him back home, and he kept taking his medication, and was coming to work, and I think that time he probably wasn't on such a big dosage, because he wasn't so dopey, he wasn't so zonked out. But went for maybe a month or 6 weeks, and he's back on the drugs again. Hard. And that's when the psychotic episodes started happening. He started thinking that people were coming to get him, they were going to kill him, they were going to kill the family. I have to get out of here. I've got to go. I've got to disappear. Take me out the bush. Let me jump down a shaft. That's what he used to say to me. I used to say to him, Mike, no one's coming to get you. Who's coming to get you? It was the people he was involved with, the drug people. And I used to say to him, I'd sit him down, and in the office where it was nice and quiet, I said, well, what are they coming to get you for, Mike? Well, you owe them money. No, I don't have any money. I said, well, why? He just had this idea in his head. And the idea he had in his head, it took me a while to get it out of him, but the idea he had in his head was that he'd given an STD to one of the guys that he was doing drugs with, or maybe a supplier or whatever, one of their girlfriends, and he was dead set that these people were coming to get him. They were going to kill him for what he'd done, and this went on for a number of years. And I'll have to stop this video because we're coming up to 9 minutes or something. So I'll do an episode 4 and we'll carry on this conversation. Catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.